Welcome back to the channel. In today's proceedings, there's coverage on the FAA and the 737 MAX. China Airlines is starting a new route to the United States. And lastly, Boeing's deliveries per month are falling. That's where I want to begin proceedings. Boeing most recently published its deliveries and also order tally for February of this year, representing a drop as the plane maker battles persistent issues. Boeing said it had delivered 27 planes during the month. While a drop, this represented only a one aircraft decrease from the same period 1 year prior. While this could be obviously encouraging, given everything that has hit the manufacturer, it still is a decrease in a year that they had planned several rate outputs to meet growing demand. And obviously from the outside looking in, we believe that they were recovering strongly. That, though, isn't the case. Manufacturers such as Boeing rely heavily on their single-aisle narrow-body offering. In this case, it's the 737 MAX. If this is to encounter issues, the figure in terms of deliveries will drop significantly. Since the first week of January, Boeing has faced pressures, not just within its business, but generally towards the series, which saw deliveries delayed alongside planned production increases being put off for the moment. Boeing must regain stability and confidence before considering the increase of production, and therefore seeing these delivery figures rise with it. However, you may also recall that the FAA barred a planned increase during one of their all-important audits. They believed that any increase in production rates would significantly impact Boeing's ability to turn around its fortunes and generally focus more on safety. Orders for Boeing products rose 15 during the month and thus brought the total to a modest 18. But very much like Airbus, the two leading manufacturers have started the year relatively slowly when it comes to aircraft orders, with some of the more larger ones being classed in the 2023 order book. But we know there are several in the works, and the expectation is this will grow in the next 10 or so months. Boeing's figures show 54 aircraft deliveries through the end of February. Naturally, this is primarily taken up by MAX jets, highlighting again that very important nature for the plane maker. A figure of 54 is down from the first 2 months of the year prior as well. For the remainder of 2024, the manufacturer will need to continue to attempt to regain trust from airlines and the general public, shareholders, suppliers, and so many other key entities, as this will be important for its long-term recovery. However, really taking a look at the manufacturer's success, this will all be dependent on continuing investigations, certification attempts, and more panning out in a positive direction. As airlines also battle delivery delays, there are customer impacts that they need to consider. It is a complicated situation that they find themselves in, and that is why they continue to make headlines every single week. But let's take a pause before we go back to Boeing and the Federal Aviation Administration and head to some route news. China Airlines has announced they'll be expanding their international network, focusing more so on service to the United States. The carrier has revealed that from July 14, 2024, service from Seattle to Taipei, service towards Seattle from Taipei will launch and therefore expand their presence in the US. When service commences, the airline says it'll offer enhanced options for travel between the two locations and generally regions as demand continues to grow quicker than expected, especially in the business side of things. The A350-900 will be deployed on the service, with China Airlines set to initially offer 5 weekly flights. China Airlines did also go on to say that strong demand has been present since the global pandemic between the US and Taiwan, and with more than 50 million travelers moving through Seattle, China Airlines believes it can provide a vital travel option without the need to travel to, say, other US locations to get to Taiwan. Additionally, thanks to interline ticketing, something that has become incredibly popular thanks to close relationships with other airlines and also alliances, it is possible to travel through 50 other popular locations within the United States alone. This could be Atlanta, Georgia, Phoenix, and many others. It means those that are coming from Taiwan or broader Asia will have an easy connection. And even if you are, say, going to Taiwan and coming back home from one one of the cities I mentioned, plus many more, you'll have easier access now through Seattle. They have designated the service as CI21 and CI22, and as I did mention, but just to reiterate for you, it will be a 5 times weekly offering, departing Taiwan on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and lastly, Sunday. Let me move on to the final story of today, which would probably arguably be the biggest, and I'd argue also the one you're probably going to have the most thoughts of to share down below in the comments. And it's focus on Boeing's production processes, which have once more come under fire following a New York Times report. The report, which will be linked down below in the sources area of the description, took a look at the significant failures following an audit conducted by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, into Boeing's production practices for also their 737 MAX. Of the 89 completed tests, the New York Times said that 33 were failed. Yes, 33, so that represents hardly a minor amount of, say, 1 or 2. And what it does do further is uncover the persistent and widespread issues that are continuing to plague the manufacturer, something they want to rid themselves of, but clearly the past few years haven't been successful. The FAA did launch the audit directly in response to the door blowout incident that occurred at the top of the year. As part of the audit, the governing body attempted to determine just how bad the quality slips were internally, and not necessarily how to fix what the quality slip may be, but more so fix why it is happening. Obviously, if we can stop why it's happening, there's no reason to fix what it is. Clearly, time and time again, fixes to a problem don't mean that a new problem doesn't emerge. And look, if you've been an aviation enthusiast, maybe you've watched the channel for the last couple years, you'll know that this is a reoccurring theme, and it often feels like myself that I'm regurgitating this information in different ways because there just is always something. The alarming nature of the failures has made headlines right around the world, and ultimately for these companies passing all audits is what you would require. However, to be failing so many hardly is a good look and highlights some pretty deep-rooted problems that need to be turned around. As a response to these alarming results, which are also accompanied by other visible problems, we know that Boeing must submit a turnaround plan in the next 2 months or so. This turnaround will involve formulating a comprehensive plan that targets internal refinement of key practices, which would prevent persistent quality slips from occurring long into the future. Which has to be the goal, let's be honest. The plan's implementation and long-term success will be crucial, like I said, as Boeing wants to become again the world's leading aircraft manufacturer. It's a title that they lost some time ago to Airbus, but remember, they had that title. It's Airbus's at the moment. But in the next 10 years or so, Boeing will want that title back. And Airbus now has the time to soar ahead in different markets. But for Boeing, they need that title, and they need to be up there. But see, if we're more looking at the short term, Boeing needs to sort out everything that's going on before it can truly propel itself to be a true leader. Additionally, Boeing will need to communicate any intentions it has with the FAA to be allowed to increase production. As I briefly touched on in the first subtopic of today's video, a production increase, especially for an aircraft type like the MAX, is essential to the manufacturer moving through its backlog, not losing customers and also not losing further ground to Airbus. And in the past few months, well, it's been a little bit shaky to say the least. That is going to conclude today's aviation news proceedings. Again, I can only apologize if the audio quality is a little bit off, or maybe something is noticeably different to these videos. I'm recording them in a basement in Canada, but I sincerely do appreciate your support. Please take care and do also be safe. I will indeed see you next time. Same place, same time.